A wonderful morning, afternoon, evening to everyone, whichever part of the world you are currently connecting from. It's pleasure to be with you all today. I'm curious to know. I've seen some types on the chat already. Which country are you currently connecting from? Please do quickly type in the chat. I see some people from India, people from Nigeria, Mumbai, UAE as well, of course. People are tapping in. Um, got it, got it. Canada, perfect, right? Right. India, UAE, Mozambique, good to hear. Pakistan as well. Good, good. We are thrilled to have such a diverse and engaged audience with us for today. Pleased to meet all of you. I'm sure some of you already know me or have spoken to me before, but let me quickly introduce myself. My name is John Branjo, one of the admissions advisor for International Teachers University USA. I have transformed careers of over 3,000 teachers through specialized mentoring within Sorasa. And of course, you can call me John. I'm honored to also be joined by distinguished guests, each bringing unique insights in the field of education. And of course, our topic for today is focused on the impact of advanced education on professional growth for teachers. Right, but first, right, again, something that I want to hear from the chat, right? Why are you here today? What are you hoping to achieve from this discussion? Please quickly type on the chat. Let me know why are you here today? What is it you're looking to get out of this conversation or out of this discussion? The chat is going so fast. Transform, perfect. To enhance ourselves in terms of teaching skills. They want to learn. Everybody wants to learn. Profession, perfect. Get impacts of advanced education to learn more, improving skills, upgrade, update. That's very good. Career growth. So mostly learn, career growth, skilling, things like that. All right. Now, that being said, right, with our current motivation, I'm sure people will agree with me when I say that education is ever changing, right? In the 1980s, changes due to technology happens every 20 years. 2000s, it's every 3 years. 2010, it's every year. Now in 2023, it's every month. Changes happen every month. The future is unpredictable. The modern education landscape is being shaped by rapid technological advancement, globalization, and increased demand for specialized knowledge. So to discuss how advanced education helps in this rapidly changing environment and to learn more about it, I'm happy to introduce our panelists for today. So please welcome our first panel, right? I'm sure this is a very familiar face to some of you. He is currently the head of academic program specialist and one of teaching faculty of International Teachers University USA with over 2 decades of diverse teaching experience, both in the US and internationally, including KSA, Korea, China, and of course the UAE, teaching both high school and college levels. Known for his passion for teaching and professional development of current and future educators, his dedication to the field is truly inspiring. We're excited to have with us for today. Welcome, Mr. Peter. Welcome. Thank you for joining with us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Perfect, perfect. So, Mr. Peter, being an educator or for a teachers, right? What did you say would be the best thing about being a teacher trainer?
Well, I think the best thing is probably just the conversations that I have with people about education. I really enjoy teaching these classes, and the conversations become really interesting, and I learn a lot from the people that I work with. They're bringing diverse perspectives to our conversations, and they often have ideas or strategies or anecdotes that I haven't thought of, and so I often learn from them as well.
Right, right. So it's not just them learning from you, you learning from them as well. A very unique experience of just teaching in general, I would say. And by the way, from the chat, you can see Mr. Peter, right? Yes, no? Right? Hopefully that's good to go. Perfect. Got it. Okay. Now, moving forward, right? For our next guest. Of course, let's give a warm welcome to our next guest. He is an outstanding leader in the primary education from, Dubai International Academy, Emirates Hills, where he oversees 1,480 students. His career spans for almost 2 decades, most of it spent in leadership positions. His diverse experience from working in disadvantaged areas to prestigious institutions is driven by genuine passion for supporting children and adults alike. Let's welcome Mr. Tom. It's a pleasure to have with you, to have you with us for today.
Thank you very much. As Peter
Thank you
said,
so
pleasure
much.
to be here.
So 1,480 students, but summer vacation is just right around the corner. What's one thing you'll miss being away from your school?
Oh, well, look, every day is, I know everybody says every day is different, but yeah, when you have 1,400 students in under your care and the subsequent number of teachers it takes to manage that, you miss the energy that each day requires. Getting up each morning, coming into an environment that is so diverse, and particularly in an international school. You miss the energy that each day requires and each day brings.
Perfect. And I'm sure, you don't just miss energy from them. I'm sure it takes energy from you as well. I mean, that's why
Well, look,
maybe you're excited.
yeah.
Exactly. Right. So, thank you so much for that, Mr. Tom. Now, for our final guest, of course, please, join me in welcoming Mr. Justin Allen, a distinguished educator and leader. Originally from Portland, Mr. Justin has over a decade of teaching experience with a strong administrative career. He has made significant efforts in improving academic outcomes at multiple schools in both USA and in UAE. Currently, as the principal of North American International School in Dubai, he has led his school to improve its KHDA ratings and significantly increase enrollment. His dedication to education extends to mentoring and training other educators as well, showcasing his commitment to excellence. We're delighted to have him with us today. Welcome, Mr. Justin.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it, and welcome to all of the folks who've taken the time to join this panel and discussion and learn. Thrilled to be here.
Perfect. And we're thrilled to have you. Mr. Justin, this is quite unique. Tell us one thing that most people don't know about being a principal of a school.
Say it one more time, John.
Sure. Mr. Just tell us one thing that most people don't know about being a principal of a school.
The thing that most people don't know about being a principal is that, I echo Tom, you have this secret yearning for getting, and if you're a good principal, you're always trying to slip into a classroom here and there. I keep telling the people that make my timetable to put me on so I could just teach one English class, and they refuse because they know that my schedule is not as regular as it could be, and I need to be available for other things. But I'm always trying to get in to sub, to cover, just to have that experience and keep that experience sharp.
Right. Now, while most people are yearning to be the leadership of your school, you are yearning to be in the classroom itself. That's a very unique experience. Thank you so much for that, Mr. Justin. And just to confirm from our audience, all these are all of our three panels. Just to confirm, everybody can see them, right? Yes, no, maybe. Yeah. So that we can get us started. Yeah. Good evening to everyone. Good evening to everyone. Perfect. Got it. Okay. So that being said, right? So let's get this, panel discussion on the go. So as I mentioned earlier, this new education era comes with its own sets of challenges, as we have mentioned. I want to hear our panel's thought on this. So let's start by identifying professional challenges teachers are facing these days. So, Mr. Justin, let's start with you. Could you share some of those challenges that professional teachers are facing this current education landscape?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I talk about with my staff is the the dramatic change that happened with the pandemic, and it almost sounds cliche now because we all talk about it. But you have this. We've been thrust into this technological age, and the reality is that we don't want to lose touch with some of the skills that are those old school skills, right? So I have parents coming to me with young children, KG1, KG2, grade 1, grade 2. And the biggest thing that they're concerned about is how much screen time their kids are getting within education. Because what we learned from the pandemic, even though we now have this wonderful technology that is just commonplace of all of us and all these fine people having a discussion from all over the world, we also want to make sure that kids can write in books, and we also want to make sure that kids can draw and read from text and interact with those physical manipulatives, doing math manipulatives, things like that. And so we have to find that balance, and I think that's the most difficult thing for teachers, because they have several masters. They have someone telling them, oh yes, this is the new good thing and you need to be online. And then they have parents that are saying, hey, yeah, but we really miss our children writing.
So finding the balance between screen to something that is interactable, draw, read from text itself. And how about from Mr. Tom? Can you share some challenges you have seen teachers go through?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just to build on something that Justin said there about there being a contrast of instruction, I think there's also, in the era that we're in now, there is also huge contrast in opinion. And what I mean by that is, yeah, different educators will say that this is the best way to do things. This is the next thing. But you also have parents and their connection, particularly in the private sector. Say, for example, in my context in Dubai, parents have, a never before seen, connection with school, and they all saw the schools through COVID and through that transparent lens that COVID provided. And what happens now is when you put new initiatives in, or you try something, or you experiment, or you take the risk that everybody says you should take in lessons, suddenly you become overanalyzed. And what you do comes under a microscope, not just from school educators or your teacher next door or yourself, but from home as well, because the transparency of what happens in the classrooms is at an all-time high. And so to take risks in education now, to try things, is also to manage all of the feedback, the flood of feedback that you can get at an incredibly fast pace. And so at times I worry for the mental health of educators who want to try and push things forward, or to take things backwards, not backwards, but value, as Justin said, the traditional methods of learning. And everybody has their opinion of that. And it makes it a very challenging place to try things and experiment. But on top of that, I think one thing that I would then add separate to that point in terms of education at the moment, I do think workload is worth mentioning. And I think when choosing to work in any educational institution right now, if I was changing jobs, then one of the pertinent questions I would be asking is, how does a school manage workload? How does it manage well-being? How does it manage, your time within school? How much emphasis is placed on professional development? And how is that connected with expectations? I think that's a really important thing to be mindful of at the moment. Lots of industries are going for work from home. Me in a primary school, we can't work from home,
It's not possible unless they will be coming to your home.
But there are people who are looking at different ways that maybe we can approach education, maximizing time and using time more efficiently. But yeah, I think workload is something to explore in the educational landscape more.
Right, and again, as you clearly mentioned, with the with the clear, I would say, peek behind the curtain of parents, you have to really manage the different opinions coming from feedback, coming from different sources, especially parents as well will be the big thing, and as well, workload is a very important thing.
And especially in larger, when I send something out to the parents, I'm sending it to nearly 3,000 people. That's 3,000 opinions. about the decision that I've just taken, whether it be to change where they're going to pick their kids up, to whether or not I'm going to try and help them out because it's hot now in Dubai and like they want to be in the canteen before pickup. And unfortunately, I can't let them in there because there's opinions flooding.
Exactly.
And you're always going to make one group happy and one group angry. Everything you decide, you will make one group happy and one group angry.
Yeah.
Got it. And anything to add here, Mr. Peter, from your perspective?
Well, as a teacher, I kind of wish I had Tom and Justin for principals when they're very concerned about teacher workload. That's music to my ears. But yeah, I would say that that's kind of the biggest challenge for teachers, for sure, is the workload. And when you're overworked, when you're constantly, developing really good lesson plans, trying to, integrate new technology into your classroom, try to come up with different, strategies and methods to teach. You come home exhausted, and the last thing you want to do is try to find new ways to do things, right? You kind of revert to habit because you don't have that luxury sometimes of experimenting. So I think that can be a challenge for teachers. You sort of revert to what is comfortable, and therefore you're not experimenting as much. And I can say from experience that is definitely the case at times. So.
Perfect. Interesting point. Really, you want to do the best you can. You want to really stay updated, but when you come home overworked, overloaded, you kind of feel going towards what's comfortable. And I'm sure our teachers can relate to that. And when in the topic of talking about challenges, let's talk about overcoming those challenges. Now, from your point of view, say, Mr. Justin, right? From your point of view, how does an advanced education program help in overcoming, say, for example, this current the challenge that you have mentioned, which is the finding the right balance between screen time, between current current technology to previous the text to books. How does an advanced education help with?
Yeah, that balance is, I mean, that's the holy grail, right? And it comes what Tom was talking about, Peter was talking about with regard to that teacher burnout, the idea that we've pulled the curtain back and everybody's watching now, and I mean, so one of the balances that we found, we removed the evaluative component of lesson observations. So it's teacher development is incredibly important, but the tradition of administration is that we go into teachers' classrooms and we're observing to evaluate. And a lot of times, if you're not following a very, very best practice type model, the principal may see the teacher teach one time a year, and that's it. And the teacher is freaked out by that, and the kids are freaked out by that because they have this new element, and the principal doesn't get a good idea of what that teaching and learning is. And so that, getting back to your question, you see a lot of that, oh my God, I got to use technology, or I've got to use this technique or that technique, or every single professional development thing that we've had all year long, I have to try to shove that all into one lesson. And that's a challenge. That's difficult. So if we as administrators can really remove some of that anxiety, we can remove some of that barrier to teacher development by making evaluations and making other people in your classroom safe. The first thing we have to do is we have to get into classrooms all the time. So administrators have to get out of their offices and they have to be in classes. Even if you're in for 5 or 10 minutes, you're not even watching the teacher, just interacting. You sit down with a small table group and it's like, what are you doing? What are you working on? How can I help? But we have to get colleagues to start looking at each other too. HODs have to be in a non-evaluative role so that they can go in and they can mentor the people in their departments. Teachers have to look at other teachers. The greatest thing that I always joke about the fact that before I'm done with my career, I want to go back and teach and not be an administrator, because I thought I was a really, really good teacher when I transitioned from the classroom to administration. And after 15 years, of watching really good teachers teach, I have learned so much and also have recognized that I wasn't nearly as good as I thought I was. And so I would love the opportunity to get back and to just all the stuff that I've stolen, right? Just blatantly put in my bag, my tool bag, and just took it because I've been lucky enough to watch teachers teach. The only way you can do that is to give teachers the opportunity to fail. We've all taught bad lessons. And you that bad lesson, you teach the bad lesson period one. I was a high school guy. So I might have 3 periods of the same lesson, period 1, period 3, and period 5. So you teach the lesson period 1 and it doesn't go well. And then you make a couple tweaks in period 3. Hey, it's going pretty good, but you need to tweak something as far as the groups that you put together. And by period 5, man, that lesson is killing it. If you came and observed me for period 1, as opposed to period 5, I'm going to have a different observation write-up. And so we have to have an entire collection of evidence that's done in a safe way instead of just the one-shot evaluative and you're out.
Got it. So taking that kind of skills or the skills that you've obtained, Mr. Justin, I'm sure it, from experience and also something you've learned, based from your, again, previous experience and also from other teachers as well. Now, that being said, another thing that I would like to ask or get an opinion from Mr. Tom, you mentioned the, over being analyzed and also management of like parents and also workload. Let's specifically focus on workload. What kind of skill sets you gain from getting an advanced education that can help when it comes to managing workload that usually teachers have, or what kind of skill sets will mostly usually teachers get when it comes to managing workload?
Good question. I think throughout my career, and a lot of this is down to courses that I would attend, conversations that I would have, other teachers that I would learn from, fabulous mentors, that idea of never stopping learning. But prioritization was probably one of the toughest lessons to learn. And coupled with prioritization is the understanding of where I'm working at that time and what are the priorities of the act. What are my priorities and what I see for the priorities of the students I work with, but also what are the priorities of the organization? Because if you can dovetail what you want to work on with the organization, then you'll find you get an awful lot more support. I suppose if I was to contextualize that, if I had a particular passion for sport, but at the time, and I was trying to push sport with some of the students that I was working with, the school is working very hard within the performing arts and trying to push performing arts, I might find myself in at a bit of an impasse where my workload doubles because I not only have to support the school's vision of growing performing arts, but I also have to grow my vision of trying to grow sport. Or it could be assessment and assessment practices, and everybody's trying to develop assessment practices within the school. And I want to work on engagements at the start of lessons. If I can dovetail, whether it be something I'm working on as a project as part of professional development, or whether it be my own personal growth in a particular area of school, if I can dovetail that with the organization that I'm working in, I will find not only are my efforts better resourced by the school, supported by the school, but they're much more likely to succeed because they are in fact part of that whole school vision. So it's looking at yourself as an educator as part of a community across your year group, across your school, perhaps even across the region that you're in. How can you work symbiotically with those around you on areas of need? So that efficiency does benefit workload because you end up maximizing impact whilst not doubling up on tasks and overwhelming yourself.
Right. So prioritizing the right kind of tasks and also working symbiotically towards the community that you're working on, even in the higher scale, so will simultaneously increase your efficiency and also lessen the workload.
If I'm looking to grow my career, then it's one thing to work on the things that I think I need to work on, but what does the organization need to work on as well? and how can I support that? And if I start demonstrating my knowledge of wider community issues and supporting them, then it's likely that my career in itself will grow with that. And those above me, yeah.
Perfect. Got it. So we've seen then the challenges and also the outcomes, how advanced education helps when it comes to these challenges. Now I want to understand, like, will it also affect career progression? So for Peter, you've worked in various international education settings, right? How do you believe advanced education helps teachers secure positions in, say, for example, prestigious international schools and increase their earning potential?
Well, I think it helps. I don't think it's necessary. I've worked with many colleagues that have just a bachelor's degree, and they were fantastic teachers. But I would say a lot of people that I work with did have master's degrees or were on the road to earning one while they were working. And, so it does give you that extra credibility. The job market is obviously can be very competitive. So having that edge is probably important. Always necessary. I want to stress that, but it does help in certain instances, depending on the school. I can only speak from my experience. I don't know if my experience is universal, but basically, any school that I've joined in the past, they often have like what are called steps, right? So you join a school and they will determine, based on your experience, what step you come in on the school, whether it's step 7, step 8, step 9, step 2. And then they have a package where they have like a base salary, and then they have a salary for you if you have a master's degree. And the master's degree, they don't really make the distinction between master's degrees. So in other words, if you have a master's of education or a master's in your subject matter, so I have a master's of literature, they don't really make that distinction. You get a bonus if you have the master's degree. And then on top of that, if you go beyond a master's degree, they call it a master's plus. So I had 90 graduate hours beyond a master's degree. So I was able to earn a little bit more as a result of that. And so then once you come in at a certain step and a certain pay, then every year you would get, sort of a salary increase, whether it's, 3%, 5%, 7%, and it would be maintained, right? And so, yeah, and that depends on the school, it depends on the country, but that has been my experience. So I do want to stress that I have many colleagues that did have a bachelor's degree only. I had many colleagues that were working on their master's while we were, part of the faculty. And then I knew a lot of people that had already secured a master's, both either in their subject matter, whether it's physics, chemistry, whatever, or education. And I've actually had some colleagues with PhDs as well. Like I worked with a colleague, a PhD in physics. Okay, so there's all different levels at any particular school.
Got it. So as you have stressed, again, levels will be there when it comes to, and there's different pathways that you can take. You mentioned your colleagues, but it does give you, again, as you mentioned, extra credibility, competitive in the job market. And as interestingly, you mentioned steps. There's different steps that you go into the school. So in that note, for Mr. Justin, right, I want to hear from your perspective on this as someone who reached the position of a principal, right? What specific skills you gain through advanced education that you feel like crucial in a teacher's transition to a leadership position?
Yeah. First of all, and I'm so glad that you transitioned from Peter to me, because I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, Peter, yes, I want to talk about this when he said that. Look, we've had much like you think about inflation in a monetary sense, where if I have a dirham or a dollar or whatever, it doesn't buy as much as it used to 50 years ago. We've had an inflation in higher education. And so 50 years ago, the majority of our population, if they went to school and they completed high school, they could go out, and especially in America, they could go out and they could get a job and support their family and buy a house and have a really nice life. We now have everybody, not everybody graduates high school, but a high school diploma is a basic requirement now. And so the inflation is everybody needs a bachelor's degree. And so 20 years ago, everybody needed a bachelor's degree, and you couldn't get a good job without a bachelor's degree. And I agree with Peter. It didn't matter what bachelor's degree you had. You just had to have a college degree. Now, the inflation is, I'm looking for people with master's degrees. and because I want that from my perspective, and probably, I don't know if Tom's experienced this or not, if I'm going to transition to another job and I'm going to go to an elite international school, I need to be a doctor. I need to have Dr. Justin. And so as I get into the tail end of my career, I'm considering whether or not I want to go to that and do that doctorate study. Mostly because I'd like to learn it too, but also, that's the way career-wise you can be competitive. That there's a lot of people who won't hire you regardless of your accomplishments because you don't have a couple of letters behind your name, and that's a reality. It's a sad reality because there's a lot of qualified people who have done good work and have those degrees, but they have them just by experience. The other thing, though, that is important is that every professional, like what we consider a professional career, you look at doctors, you look at lawyers, you look at the upper echelon, of engineers. When you look at those careers, those people are always required to be learning the latest thing. If you're a doctor, you don't just become a doctor 40 years ago and then just start practicing medicine. You're required to go to seminars. You're required to learn the latest techniques. You're required to do this additional learning. If you're an engineer, the change in engineering over even the last 10 years with technology, you can't be an effective engineer unless you're doing that higher education, those advanced education skills. Teachers should be the same. The problem is that with our work-life balance, being a teacher, it doesn't provide for that. You're doing 10-hour, 12-hour days just to try to deal with your classroom, plan your lessons, and grade everything. So you're giving timely and meaningful feedback. So your administrator doesn't get mad at you. And so that's the biggest thing and the biggest opportunity in going into a master's program or an advanced education program is it does provide you other opportunities career-wise. But I've known a lot of people who got masters in educational leadership and they never transitioned to be an educational leader. They never went to that second role. But the thing they learned in that educational leadership program made them so much better of a teacher because they were experienced or at least exposed to some of that research that wasn't around when they first got their degree, when they first did their educational training. And it really, really, really valuable to continue that learning.
Right. Interesting you mentioned it. So the thing that they've learned doesn't necessarily push them towards a higher position or whichever, but it made them better teachers at that. And at the end of the day, that's what we're looking for, right? And to get your opinion on this, Mr. Tom, we've seen how a qualification or advanced education can push that kind of outcomes. But I want to hear from your side, like any additional skills or attributes that you look for in a leadership role. So from your perspective, what are the skills you're looking for a leadership role?
Okay. What I want from a leader, what I want from any member of staff is I want them to be a good human being, because ultimately in education, we're in the people business. We grow people, and if a person finds it challenging to work with people, they're probably not for me or my organization. So if I was to place any skill above everything, it is humanity, trust. There's a great TED talk by Simon Sinek that talks about I think it's the trust versus performance matrix, and essentially what do the Navy SEALs look for in a person, and every single time they will value trust over performance, because if you want an organization to work well, work together, and work towards common goals, then you have to trust one another. So the very first thing is I want to see how they'll respond to challenging situations. So that forms a heavy part of my interview process, where they will have difficult emails to read. How would you respond? I want to know about their difficult circumstances that they have ever been part of. How did they respond? I want to know how a person is when times are difficult, because that is the measure of a person. And ultimately, in order to be a successful leader, you have to be able to manage yourself during those times, manage your own emotions during those times. And those are the sorts of people that I want to work with. I suppose if you were to get into the nitty-gritty of what I want from a leader, I'll use a leadership model actually to describe this one. It's something known as the RACI matrix. Okay, the RACI matrix basically defines how a person would divvy up tasks, and this is what I want to know from a leader. Do they understand, maybe not this, but a similar concept? Who is responsible? Who is accountable? Who needs to be consulted? And who needs to be informed? If a person can demonstrate their understanding that when you're leading, it is important to understand who ultimately is accountable for what's happening, who is responsible for executing the plan, who needs to be talked with, who are the experts around, so that you are qualifying or quantifying the way in which you're doing things, and who is it that needs to be informed during this process or perhaps after this process. So what I'm looking for is a person who understands that kind of a concept. Basically, the concept that we have to work with others. You will not achieve something by yourself. And the RACI matrix is a demonstration of collaborative leadership. So that's what I want to know from people, that they understand that.
It's collaborative, when it comes to the leadership that you're looking for, who is responsible, accountable, who can be consulted, and who can be informed. These are great points that you have pointed out, Mr. Tom. Moving forward, now that we've heard, potential skills and also transitioning towards leadership role, for Mr. Peter, like, can you share some examples of professional growth outcomes that teachers can potentially achieve after completing advanced education courses?
Sure. So if you're doing, an advanced course, doing an advanced degree in education, obviously you're going to learn all the kind of latest, teaching methods and strategies. You're going to learn the best way to, use formative and summative assessments in the classroom and be able to kind of, use the data appropriately to, kind of further facilitate your instruction. You're going to learn how to create better lesson plans using backward planning. You're going to be able to kind of develop really kind of robust and rigorous essential questions that can kind of guide your units. You can learn how to, better differentiate a classroom and, maybe integrating, tech, right? Using, the latest kind of technological strategies, ed tech tools, programs, applications that might be useful, okay? And then, but just putting, education aside, even if you're getting a master's in, let's say, your area of study, right? If you're getting like a master's in physics or English or chemistry or whatever, I do think that any sort of advanced degree doing that work just kind of hones your critical thinking skills as well, right? Learning how to think, that's kind of what I've taken away the most. I think that in any program, you're going to be doing a lot of writing. And so as an English teacher, I can tell you that writing clearly is thinking clearly. And so when you're involved in that type of activity, you're just thinking on a different level, on a higher level, okay? And so in either direction, whether it's education or whether it's your own discipline, having those tools, developing those academic and critical thinking tools, I just think make you a better teacher overall. I think it allows you to, communicate more clearly with your students, with all the stakeholders. I also think it allows you to kind of improvise. I just think, like, when you're a teacher, so many things can kind of come at you. And if you have that kind of clarity of thought, that clarity of vision, and that kind of intellectual background, I just think it can help you kind of navigate all the kind of bumps that are going to kind of come your way. That's what I've taken away from it. I don't think I would have been as good of a teacher if I didn't have this kind of graduate work behind me.
Right. And we take that out of the education context. And even if you focus on any, any advanced degree, be it, with further education outside education in general, like as you mentioned, any advanced degrees hones critical thinking skills. And this is quite important, right? Which makes you, again, as you mentioned, a better teacher. And that's, again, what we are here for. So to sum it up, we've talked about challenges. We went into how further education helps in overcoming these challenges and what skills can we gain, and then going for that advanced education and achieving further career progression. Now, moving forward, I am curious to know, say for example, okay, John has decided to pursue a advanced education. Now, what potential challenges teachers face when going through such education? For Mr. Tom, what are some common challenges you foresee for teachers who have taken the decision, right? What are the common challenges you foresee they will undergo while being a teacher?
Workload.
We've come so full circle.
But genuinely, that if you take on professional development, you are adding something to your day, which is why I go back to the point I made again. Do it about something that is part of your day-to-day job. I myself, national professional qualification for headship qualification. So the projects that I worked on, which was in my instance, I worked on middle leadership and the accountability and responsibilities of middle leadership and how to grow and empower them, the multiplier effect. Well, that was something I'm doing as part of my job anyway, and I'm growing middle leadership. So that is what I do my project on. If I'm going to do a piece of CPD on teaching practice, then it's likely that, again, I might find myself looking for a piece of CPD that suits what the school is looking for. And I'm seeing someone saying time is the biggest challenge here. So here's my advice with this. If you pick to work on things that suit and grow the organization and not just you as an individual, you will find that the support that the organization gives you will increase. So if you end up, let's say we have a problem in a school with feedback to students, and you find yourself a course on feedback, and you're pushing yourself to know more about feedback. Well, then I'm going to take that to my leader and say, look, I will go on this course for feedback, and then I'll be able to deliver feedback CPD to the staff. Double CPD development for me, not only in receiving, but delivering. But also it's very likely that the administration, the school, will give me the time to do it because it's going to suit their inspection that they're going to have at some point. It's going to suit this, hopefully, if this is their mindset, the students, because they're going to get a lot from this. But the point is, again, I go back to that word of symbiotic relationship. If you pick something that's going to develop just you and you alone, then you will find you'll have more barriers. If you're going to pick something that's going to develop you, but also a wider audience, you'll get support from the wider audience. So just something to think about.
Gotcha. And when talking about, and this is something I want to check with Mr. Justin, and I want to get his knowledge about this as well. When it comes to doing something, doing something from that will benefit also the school, right? The school's perspective. So from the perspective of the principal, were there any kind of, do you have any experience that happened wherein someone took in advanced education and this is sort of snowball towards, further, that also helped the schools later down the line?
Yeah. And you have to be, I agree. I'm so glad that Tom pointed out the chat where the guy the participant put time in all capital letters is the biggest challenge. And Tom, if you were seeing the same chat that I did, that was the one that screamed out to me because it is, right? The biggest thing that let me go back in America, when I got my administrative degree, I was doing my administrative degree and was teaching full time. And that's taxing, right? My colleague who I was doing the same program came from, in America, we have districts. So came from an organization that they allowed teachers to apply to be administrators in training. And then they took them out of the classroom and paid them to be interns, basically, while they got their master's degree in leadership. So they were developing their own. That's the nirvana. That's the best model, but that doesn't exist very often. So you got to make some choices, right? My expertise as a teacher became, as I continued on as a teacher, dealing with at-risk students who were not on track for graduation, students that were at risk either socioeconomically or environmentally, students who, and Peter, I know you said this as an old English teacher. I appreciate your perspective. I taught English to kids who could never pass an English class, and that was my passion. When I went into my master's degree, the school that I was working with, they recognized some of the other skills that I had, and they put me in a leadership role in training student leaders. So I was assigned to the student government, and I taught leadership to students in addition to teaching English. I changed my master's thesis from reaching out and affecting at-risk kids to student government and student leadership and how that can change the culture of a school. That I changed the thesis because that was a logistical change. I was interested and passionate in both topics, but I didn't keep the one topic and just hold on it too tight, because like Tom says, that what the day-to-day reality that I was living at that point in time was student government, student leadership. So I could use a lot of the things that I was doing in my day-to-day practice as part of my advanced education requirements. And that's a big thing. You have to recognize that. And I see a lot of people doing that. I have a leadership candidate in my school right now. She is going through a program in America. And in America, when you get a educational administrative degree, there's a massive amount of things you have to do. And in the end, you're submitting this huge portfolio that is based on, they call it your practicum. That's just based on you documenting your experience. And so she came to me when she asked me to be a mentor, and she said, okay, we have to create all these things for me to do that match the standards. And I looked at her and said, we don't have to create anything. You're already doing these things. You just have to recognize what you're doing. And you're already going to parent nights and coordinating parent stuff. So that's parent-student relationship. You're already working on budgeting because you have a budget for grade 2. And so let's formalize that and make it not just from a teacher perspective, but from an administrative perspective. You're already doing student surveys and parent surveys to see if what you're doing in the classroom is effective. Let's change that, make it, something that works for your master's program. And so you really, really, really have to analyze, instead of looking for additional things to do, look for what am I doing already that fits into the standards that they want, and then tweak them a little bit so that you're coming at it from an administrative perspective instead of a teacher perspective.
Perfect. So rather than, again, adding to something that, again, it will increase your workload, you're looking for something that will also help, that you're also currently doing. And good point, great point there, Mr. Tom and Mr. Justin. Now, Mr. Peter, from your perspective, again, training teachers as professor, training existing and future educators, like what are your challenges that you foresee or working teachers may face when pursuing advanced education? And just a quick thing that I want to hear from.
I mean, the biggest, I guess, the timing. I mean, I feel like if you're a new teacher and you're just learning the craft and you're going to start doing your master's degree like in year 1 or year 2, maybe that's not the best idea. Like I had my master's degree before I started teaching. So I got that out of the way, but I didn't have a teacher license. So I was earning my teacher license while I was in the classroom. So I'm going to night classes, learning the license in my first year, getting the license in my first year. So I'm working all day. I'm going to school all night. I'm planning at midnight. I'm driving to work at 5 in the morning. Don't do that, right? I think if you're new, maybe you put it off until you're a little bit more settled in your career. Where if you've been teaching for 4 or 5 years, it doesn't take you as long to create those lesson plans. It doesn't take you as long to grade those papers. So maybe those are the types of, professional decisions that you make. When is the right time to do it. It also helps if you are, like, I know you're doubling your workload, but if you are a working teacher and you're then pursuing advanced education, then at least you have the opportunity to kind of utilize what you're learning in real time. So I would say the coordination between, you know, where you are in your career and when you decide to do this type of academic work is probably really important, is getting that
John,
correct.
Can I add to what Peter said from
Please do.
a realism point of view?
Please do.
If
Please do.
I'm looking at, so we just posted, I just hired, due to our increased enrollment, we just added a middle school vice principalship. So I literally just hired a middle school vice principal a month ago to come to our school next year. We had over 350 applicants for that one position. And of those 350 applicants, we picked the top 24, and then they went through 3 rounds of training. If you didn't have at least 5 years of teaching experience, you didn't make the cut from 350 to 24. I'm not interested in you, because you have to be a teacher to be a teacher leader. And I see resumes like this where someone comes out and they've taught for 2 years, and while they were teaching for that first year and second year, they immediately went into administration. And you know what? And I'm not everybody, but my personal values and beliefs is that when I'm screening resumes, I'm looking for somebody that is guaranteed to be a teacher leader and is going to be able to work with teachers to make them better. And you can't do that unless you gotta earn your street cred. You can't just bounce
dip your toes and
so,
stuff.
so that's the reality. If you really think about the reality of resumes and hiring, you know, what your resume says about you and the narrative and story it tells is incredibly, incredibly important. And part of that is I want to look for somebody who knows how to teach.
Perfect. And that's a valid point, right? Again, it's important to, as a teacher leader, you have to know how to teach. That's a really well said from you, Mr. Justin. Now, hearing again such struggles for teachers who are looking to get into advanced education, what Mr. Tom, Mr. Peter, Mr. Justin has said is sure scary, right? A lot of times overcoming struggles is important for growth, right? And growth is seen in the result that has been produced. So, Mr. Tom, how does advanced education of teachers correlate, right, with student achievement and overall school performance?
Well, I suppose part of that is defining what we term achievement. Whether that be academic, whether that be pastoral. There's lots of ways that students can achieve at school and in education. So let's just take sort of the broad overview of that. I think what further education provides a practitioner is confidence in their craft. And if they've done exactly what Justin said there, I very much admire that statement. Pick your time wisely and what that says about you and your journey through education. But if that provides you with confidence in a particular area, you will then provide confidence to the school. And in doing so, the students, in whatever it is that you have crafted to a deeper level, whether that be how to cope with stress and anxiety and pastoral, aspects of life, or whether or not that be a particular expertise with regards to assessment practice. And what I would then see in terms of, let's take my school, which is quite big. If I have somebody who has become a particular expert in assessment or feedback practices, then they will probably start contributing more heavily towards CPD, policy writing. What then starts to happen is you get more of a consistent approach within a school. And as the students move up through my school, they receive a progressive, consistent education. So the better trained that people are, the more robust the systems become to guide them through. And actually, I use the word consistent there. But really, what you want from a really healthy organization is to be able to get the consistency and then get the cohesion. where you have not necessarily exactly the same practice, but a cohesive goal. And that is generated through confidence. That is generated through shared vision. And if you have enough people in your organization who engage with further professional development, that is what you end up achieving, I think. So confidence, I think, is what I would sort of go down there. That is what I think it provides the education system. It's the reason why I feel confident to sit here and talk about my experiences, because I've engaged with development, and I wouldn't necessarily feel confident to do that if I hadn't.
Of course. I mean, confidence in yourself equates to confidence of people around you. Confidence, confidence of the school in you, right? And that is clearly there, definitely. Now, that being said, I want to hear from Mr. Justin here. Like, for someone who has achieved improvement of governmental ratings, right, both schools in USA and UAE, right? Which skills do you think can be sharpened or learned by going through advanced education that helps them perform such roles in the leadership role or mid leadership coordinator, things like that?
Yeah. So there's a couple aspects to school change work. I've been lucky enough to find my niche. Most of my career has been, if you look at my resume, most of my career has been spending about 4 to 5 years at a school. I choose schools that are a challenge and are not being successful. And then I work with staffs to make them better. It's not me that's doing this. It's an entire incredibly dedicated workforce that the first thing I have to do is I have to get out of people's way and I have to remove obstacles. Right. That's probably people love to attribute some of the success I've had in my career as this, oh wow, you're doing this so well. I'm not doing anything. I'm just moving stuff out of people's way so they can be better. But my advanced education work really assisted with that school improvement work because I was able to do a couple of things. One, we've talked about this, and I go on and ad nauseum, but teacher observation and the ability to develop teachers is not something that's taught in a teacher program. If you're getting a bachelor's degree in education, you're being taught how to teach, not how to teach somebody else to teach. And you can't gain that if you are pursuing some type of advanced learning. Now, if you're doing a self-study and you're on the internet and on YouTube and reading as much books as you can learn that. But having that experience in an organized and systemic programmatic way with a mentor, much like Peter mentors his students in a university setting, that is a huge learning curve to go from that teacher perspective to that administrator perspective. And so that's probably the biggest thing that I see. Now, there are other aspects too. Peter will back me up on this. In America, the biggest thing you can do to get fired is to screw up the budget and screw up the money. And I took my budgeting in my master's degree program was a weekend seminar. That's all I learned about budget. And then I got my first principalship, and it was pages and sheets of Excel spreadsheets. I was dealing with a multi-million-dollar budget, and I had a weekend. And so there's been a lot of changes in a lot of advanced educational programs where they're focusing more on some of those hard skills. I love Tom's comment about how to write an email. How do you communicate to your community? How do you interact in such a way that you can make? We started this when Tom and I were joking about every decision you make, you're going to make somebody angry and you're going to make another portion of your community happy. How do you navigate that? Those are all conversations, professional conversations that if you're not getting taught directly within the standards of the program, you're having those conversations with other colleagues who are thinking, breathing, and learning about educational leadership. You're surrounding yourself when you join a program with a community who is also learning these things, and then you're talking about it. And guess what? Because you're incredibly intelligent people, you're going to come up with new ideas that nobody else has thought about. And that's the value of an advanced educational environment. I wish I wish that I never want to stop going to school. I want to get as many degrees as I can because I find that invigorating. I find the classroom invigorating. I find hanging out with people who are smarter than I am the best use of my time. And I hope I don't lose that. I hope when I'm 80, I'm still dawdling along on some campus and pursuing another degree, because I feel like when I stop doing that, then I'm done. I don't want to be in a rocking chair.
Education is such a profession where continuous learning needs to be there. And as you mentioned, Mr. Justin, this is really a key thing for being a teacher, and something that I want to throw towards Professor Peter, like Mr. Peter here. As we have seen from Mr. Justin, teachers, admins, even principals are expected to continuously learn and improve. Like, how have you promoted the concept of lifelong learning through advanced educational programs for teachers?
Well, before that, I want to find out what Justin's financial aid package is for being able to do education till he's
Look,
80.
I
I've
spent
maxed
all
mine
my
out.
money. Yeah, I spent all my money at the University of Oregon, and I didn't go there. I had two children that went there. So I had to take a pause on my educational journey while I put two kids through college. I've got one kid who's a pediatric oncologist at University of Stanford. I got another kid who's an environmental scientist for the state of Oregon. And those things aren't cheap. And so I had to absolutely stop. But I've gotten to the point now where my children are adults and they're on their own and they're gainfully employed themselves. And I'm hoping they're going to start kicking down for dad's education pretty quick.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, Jan, in your question was about promoting the concept of lifelong learning. Well, I don't think I promote it. I think most of the teachers that I come into contact, they already have it, because that's what allows me to come in contact with them in the first place. If they're pursuing some sort of advanced degree or professional development, clearly they already kind of have that inclination. But I would say that, so having, being a lifelong learner, I think is incredibly important. A master's degree is a good way to do that. There are other ways to do that as well. Obviously, if you're ever looking for a job and you're, looking at schools, you always want to find out if those schools offer professional development, as part of the job. I've been lucky enough in my career that I've worked at schools where they have a budget to give to teachers. So I had money that I was given per academic year that I could use. And I've gone to Greece for professional development. I've gone to India. I've gone to Thailand. I've gone to Oman. And so those were really great experiences if you're in a position to do it. Most schools have in-house professional development as well. I've worked at schools where they've invited speakers in. I've also worked at schools where we as colleagues give each other professional development. We had a name for it. Now I'm blanking on it, but we would, a couple days a year, we would have almost like a professional development fair where teachers would sign up to give professional development to their colleagues. And we would go around and see what the other teachers are doing, learn from them, or take on the role of delivering and then kind of doing the prep work. And so any of those opportunities are also good to facilitate lifelong learning. I would say, as Justin mentioned earlier, there's a lot of free stuff on the internet. Go to YouTube, start Googling stuff. You want to learn more about assessment, type in assessment in YouTube. You're going to find some good videos. If you work at a school and maybe your school isn't technologically advanced or you don't have clever touch TVs in your classroom, you should probably still be looking at tutorials. And even if you can't use them at that particular moment, you still want to probably become familiar with them. I also tell learners that they should, on their own, they should be learning who sort of the, kind of the mainstream theorists are. You'll forgive me for being kind of American centric, but if you're in education, you should probably know who Wiggins and McTighe are. You should probably know Carol Ann Tomlinson. You should probably know who Thomas Gusky is, Robert Marzano, right? So you can find out the information even if you're not enrolled in a program, even though a program might be useful. And then I also just kind of implore people to just be well-rounded in their lives, right? As educators, like, I don't know, we should be reading books in our spare time. Like we should we should comport ourselves in sort of an intellectual way as models for our students. So being well-rounded, both professionally and personally, I think is incredibly important, especially if you're in like the humanities. Or if you're in the humanities, you should like be reading publications, knowing about global events, global politics, know what's going on, so you can make those text to world connections in your classroom. So there's many, many, many different ways teachers can be lifelong learners, whether it's in the classroom or outside.
Gotcha. So important to know is like using resources of the school or whatever it is available to you. You know, YouTube is there. A lot of free things as well are there. You know, be it going towards a program or learning on yourself. As long as you improve yourself as educators, is very important and utilize whatever is possible. Now that said, then Mr. Tom, talking about specific skills. What specific advanced teaching skills would you say, for example, like to see more from teachers across the profession, like that you feel it contributes to the students' overall performance?
I think research would probably place, if I was bold to say, I think there are probably two things at the top, among other things. One of them is teachers' ability to form relationships with their students. And I've just read a comment here about physics being difficult to engage students with. But I think, regardless of the subject you're sort of doing, ultimately, I'm not sure there's any topic I've ever listened to from an incredibly passionate person that I haven't found engaging. A person's passion about what they do is in itself infectious. And so one skill I look for from a teacher is the skill of forming relationships with students and with colleagues around them. I go back to the notion of being in the people business. If you can do that, then people are going to be more engaged with you because they value who you are and what you are. So that would be one thing that I would value. The other is feedback. So how are you, again, engaging with your students' educational journey? What is the relationship between you as a practitioner and the journey that your students are going on? And how do you feed back from your expertise and your knowledge, on what it is that they are progressing on? I think if you can sort of perfect those two things, building those relationships and then using those relationships to feed back, then ultimately, providing of course you have the subject knowledge in your area, let's call that a prerequisite.
Right.
Then then I think that your students will have a hugely successful time with you. So yeah, what do I look for in terms of skills? The skill and the ability to form relationships with students and the ability to feed back on their educational journey in whatever way works with the policies of the school and the most up-to-date best practice.
Perfect. Forming relationships, and I like what you mentioned. I mean, I feel the same way. I could listen to whatever that person is saying, as long as they're passionate about saying that, right? Right. You even if they're explaining some such simple things, you'll feel it, right? And this is again, you'll feel that to teachers that you come across with as well. Now, from our to our audience, by the way, there is a question and answer. Uh, place that you can write your questions on, and I kind of want to go through this, some of these questions and ask them specifically to Mr. Justin, to Mr. Peter, to Mr. Tom. Just a quick thing. I saw a question here actually, and I wanted to ask.
Dan, whilst you look for that, can I address one that I saw?
Sure, please go ahead.
Whilst you're looking for one, there was 3 comments by Asma, Ritu, and Nabila. Between the 3 of them, they had sort of talked about workload and the amount of things that people are expected to do. I need to differentiate. How have I differentiated? How have I included technology? How have I done feedback? What are my AFL skills? All of these. And I think Asma was talking about challenging behaviors in classrooms and the increasing sort of behaviors. And what I would be doing in a school like that, that's how I feel in a school, or if I'm interviewing for a school, the advice I can give there is, how do you refer back to the policy? What is the policy of the school? And this is where you need to look at leadership of the school, asking the right questions. This is the scenario I'm faced with. I'm expected to do X, Y, Z. You know, what is the policy of the school in supporting me to be able to do that? So if there is a huge focus on differentiation, learning technologies, and feedback, where are the CPD sessions? Have the leadership team put in CPD sessions tailored to their expectations, because that is an accountability issue. As a leader, I cannot place demands on things to be in my school without then providing the necessary support to train people in them and upskill people, but also the necessary policies to ensure that everybody is treated fairly within that as well, because different leaders might go into the same lesson and see it two different ways. So you need policies in place to try and protect teachers against that and against unfair opinions, subjective opinions. So when it comes to all of those things, all of those workload aspects, I would say have the confidence to go to a school administrator leader and say, well, could you just talk me through the policies? What do the policies say? And then talk me through the CPD schedule that's kind of in place and that's going to support all of us in order to do this. That would be my advice, because it's difficult to give advice without knowing the context of the school. But generally speaking, that's what I would just advise if you feel that you're in a position like that. Check the policies.
I mean, that goes into, right. So that definitely goes into working towards like the people around you, right? And then working towards which resources are available as well. And now, something to ask to Mr. Peter as someone who's teaching current educators. Like I saw a question about like what are the good ways or what are some ways to improve like slow learners, right? If I'm a teacher and there's specific slow learners in my class, how would I address that, or what are things I can do to address that? It's just a few things that you could do.
Well, I just think you need to differentiate your instruction. I mean, if they're slow, they need the support that they need. It depends. And it depends on the reason why they're slow. Or are they on an IEP? Are they a SEND student? Do they have a push-in teacher? There's many reasons why a learner might be slow, but I just think that giving them that individualized attention and being able to differentiate effectively. I know that in the past, if I'm teaching Shakespeare and there are some kind of weaker students in the classroom, I'm not going to have them read Shakespeare. They're going to read the No Fear Shakespeare. They're going to read the summary instead. And I'm going to supplement it with videos and audio. And so there are many things that you could do to bring learners up to speed at their own level without sacrificing, the rigor of what you're trying to teach them. So differentiation is obviously the key.
Differentiation. And again, this is an important skill of a teacher. Towards you, Mr. Justin, I saw a question here that specifically asks which degree, if there is one, promotes us to be a principal apart from our experiences.
I totally saw that one too. So I'm so glad that you asked me that, because I saw it going through. Hey, really quickly, I want to add to Peter though, and Peter's comment, and it relates to what all of us have said. Look at your school and see what resources they have for differentiation. So if your school is saying differentiation is key, for my school, when the government inspection comes out next year, this is what the government inspectors have asked me to focus on. They felt like we weren't doing a very good job of that, which was really, really frustrating for us, because we're what's called an inclusive school. So we don't base the admission process solely on a kid's admission exam. We're taking all sorts of kids. And so we really had to be introspective and look at what were our practices were and how can we improve. There's a massive amount of technology for differentiation that didn't exist. and it's not very expensive, or it's free. We have a program that we acquired that literally can take a topic, a science topic, a social studies topic, a nonfiction piece for English, and it can provide different articles on the same thing based on the different lexile levels within your classroom. And so you can be teaching volcanoes, and you can have 4 different groups, and you've got one lexile group that's reading an article on volcanoes that are at their reading level or just slightly above, so they're challenged. And then you've got another group that's reading an article about volcanoes that's 2 grades above their reading level. When the kids have the discussion about volcanoes, they don't even know that everybody has a different article, because the article subject is the same. It's just presented in a different lexile level or a different grade equivalent reading level. I didn't have that when I was teaching English and teaching reading, back in the dark ages. That didn't exist. And so look for those resources that will allow you to effectively differentiate and go ahead and be able to use your time, so you're not killing yourself and working 16-hour days. The degree one is very quick because it's really important. If you're looking at an international setting and you want to move beyond just your home country, you have to look at the international standard. So in different countries, they have different requirements for what you need to have for educational leadership. But if you're going to really make yourself marketable to be able to go anywhere, you're looking for a master's in educational leadership. That's the degree that you're looking for. A master's of curriculum instruction is incredibly important, and it is very valuable, but it doesn't translate into global, application. So you're really looking for a degree if you really want to do this work. And I'd question your sanity if you're signing up to be a principal. But if you really want to do this work, you're looking at something that is specific to this work, which is a Master of Educational Leadership. That's the master's degree that's going to make you most marketable in all different markets in different countries.
Perfect. Yes, that sums up. But something that I want to ask to across all of our panels. Let's start with Mr. Tom, and just a quick, cap into all of this discussion that we've had. What's the one thing people in this audience should remember about this panel when it comes to advanced education? Again, something quick.
Quick.
Pick one quick, Tom. Go.
Go, think. That ultimately, if you do take part in CPD, then your career will improve. Whether that be a course within your school, whether that be something online, a podcast, or a master's degree, your career will benefit from it.
Perfect. Got it. And from Mr. Peter?
Well, I would second that. I do think there are benefits to, doing graduate work, but that's not the only way. And every individual teacher needs to find out if it's financially feasible, if they have the time, where they are in their career. And if they do have the time and they do have that financial support, then I do think it's important to kind of cultivate your career in that way. But there are many ways to be a lifelong learner, for sure.
Perfect. And about Mr. Justin?
The one thing they should take away wasn't anything that I said. It's actually, I love being on this panel because I feel like I've been put together with 2 people that are smarter than I am, with Mr. Tom and Mr. Peter. So thank you. The thing that Tom said over and over again, which is also my philosophy, especially in my early career of working with at-risk kids, is relationships, relationships, relationships. I can teach anyone how to teach. I can't teach you how to love kids. And so you've got to be able to find the people who love kids or love people, and then have the skills through an advanced education environment to teach them how to teach. Because of me choosing this career and getting my master's and then getting the professional experience over 20 years, I'm pretty confident that I can teach most people how to teach. But I can't teach you how to be passionate, which was one thing that Tom said, and I can't teach you how to love kids. And that's a deal. So the advanced education program is not going to teach you how to be passionate or love kids, but it is going to teach you how to recognize the folks that are going to be applying for your job that have that passion, that have that human relationship, high EQ, and then it's going to allow you to have the skills to be able to teach that person, even if they're new in their career and they need some professional development. You're going to be able to take that person and make them a master teacher because they're already 3 steps ahead, because they can build relationships and then they can leverage those relationships to higher academic and behavioral performance. And that is the key to an exceptional teacher. So thank you, Tom. I appreciate being on the panel.
And that brings us to our end of our discussion. Thank you, Tom. And thank you, Mr. Peter. Thank you, Mr. Tom. Thank you, Mr. Justin. It was refreshing and inspiring to hear thoughts of our panels, again, from the current issues that teachers are facing to the current time, how advanced education can help overcome such issues, to the potential skills, career progression that can be gained by the sacrifice that they will be making. On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to extend my gratitude to our panelists, for participating in this lovely discussion. Your individual perspectives undoubtedly broaden our understanding about the topic and have truly inspired our teachers here today. Again, thank you so much, Mr. Peter, Mr. Tom,
Thank you
Mr.
so
Justin.
much. I enjoyed being on the panel with both these gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to speak with all of you. Yeah, really enjoyed that.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Thank you.
And for people, thank you. And for people who are planning to stay ahead, we have some few words that we would like to share to you, everyone. Give me a second. Okay, got it. Yeah, Mr. Tom, Mr. Justin, thank you so much. That's about mostly from our side.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, John.
Take care. Take care.
Everyone, take care and good luck in your professional pursuits. You're going to be great. Just by the fact that you're here right now, taking your time on, for me, it's a Friday night, and having an hour and a half discussion on education, you are the people that I want to have send me a resume. So nice job. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, so for the people who are still here, for those who are looking to get broader knowledge when it comes to advanced education, just a brief recap. We have heard from our panelists, we have adopted different pathways to advanced education. And to reiterate why get an advanced education in general, again, there's professional growth when it comes to masters in education. Master's degree in general, there's over 60%, when it comes to educational leadership that requires advanced degrees, and there's teachers with advanced degrees that are more likely to implement innovative teaching practices than one that just they have, mentioned. And when it comes to the different impact advanced education, can go for professional growth. You can enhance your career opportunities, increase your earning potential, greater job satisfaction, and ability to influence educational practices. And these are the things that they have clearly mentioned earlier. So with that, then this is just a summary. Now, the International Teachers University USA currently offers Masters in Education, one of the pathways to advanced education. Right, this will be a one-year Masters in Education program aimed towards enhancement of your skills and, of course, to be future ready. From what we have talked about with the panels. So, if you would like, we'll be sharing a link towards the on the chat, wherein you can schedule a one-on-one call with our team to advise you based on your current profile of what are you looking for, and you can schedule that a call with the admission advisor to discuss details and how we can guide you and how it can impact your career and growth. So a link to the to schedule a Zoom call will be in the chat. I think our team is mentioning that, so give me a second. All right, so it's there. So for those who are looking to go ahead, we'll be happy to chat with you and discuss all about your advanced education and how it can impact your career. Right. So again, that's mostly it. It will be affiliated to the International Teachers University USA to answer the question here on the chat how long it will be. It will be a 1 year master's in education. Again, the details will be, we'll discuss that on the call itself. So schedule your one-on-one, one-on-one session. How long is it valid? Just like your bachelor's degree, just like your typical bachelor's degree in education or your typical bachelor's degree or any qualification, it has no validity. So it will be there. Links are not clickable. So can someone check that from the team? Can someone share the link as well? This will be a 1 year master's in education program. So since it is coming from a US, this is a US approved, from the Higher Education Licensure Committee in US. So this is something that you can use worldwide. Right. That's about it. With that being said, then again, please do schedule your session and we can have a conversation. Right. I think there's no other questions. Perfect. Got it. That's about it. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining with us on this wonderful panel discussion. And I hope you have, taken some knowledge with you with regards to the, to the advanced education, and when it comes to, how it can help you, be it from your skills, be it updating your knowledge, be it, going forward when it comes to your career, I hope you've taken some of those points and heard from our wonderful panel. Again, thank you so much, everyone, and I hope to see you guys in our admission advisor to discuss how our Masters in Education program could do the same. That's about it. Thank you so much, guys. Take care, and we hope to see you soon. Bye bye.